What do Smells Like Teen Spirit, Radiohead, and modern hip-hop vocals all have in common? It's this one compressor. Rain down, oh, the sky is... This is the Distressor, and it's probably touched way more hits than you could even realize. This is what I consider the Swiss Army knife of compressors, and if I had to choose just one compressor, it would be this. To understand why it's so powerful and why it's become the Swiss Army knife of compressors, we need to understand why it was originally created. This is Dave Durr, and Dave was working at Eventide, and he was obsessed with gear. He wanted to create something that had the vibe of an 1176 or an LA2A, but also have the versatility of the modern digital era. The Distressor was released in 1995, and it was the first product from Empirical Labs, and they hit it out of the park on this one. It came out at a perfect time as well, because in 1995, digital recording was on the rise, but the plugins and tools that they had then did not sound very good, but they had a lot of control. And they were looking for something that had the vibe of the classic analog gear with the control of the modern day era. So here's why it became the Swiss Army knife of compressors. There's a ton of control on this specific compressor. I'm using the FG Stress, which is Slate Digital's emulation of it. There's also a UA emulation of it as well. All of those sound fantastic. To understand how powerful this is, first we need to focus on the ratio. We have a 1-to-1 ratio, which is no compression, which allows you to run the different circuits that are inside of the Distressor without adding any compression at all, which is super helpful if you're looking to get a bit of color. You also have a 10-to-1, which emulates the opto. You can even see it says opto right underneath there. And then we can go 20-to-1, and then we even have a nuke setting here, which is essentially a brick wall limiter with a ton of control. We also have a few detector options down here, and we have some audio options here. The detector is what is being detected for the compressor to trigger the compressor, so some sidechain EQ. We also have some audio circuits here that we can add a high pass to. We have distortion circuit 2 and distortion circuit 3. There's also a mix knob on this as well, so you can blend it in and do some parallel compression, which is super powerful. This has a fixed threshold, so you actually bring the input knob up to hit that threshold where you want it. There's also the attack and release, and then of course the output to make sure everything is being gain staged properly. So first let's talk about the distortion circuits, because this is where the vibe of that analog world comes in. With the distortion circuit off, or clean, there is no intentional distortion going on at all. No harmonics are being added. But with distortion circuit 2, it emphasizes even order harmonics, so similar to tubes, adding fullness, richness, and just a subtle thickening effect. It's great for adding vintage tube-like character to like vocals, bass, guitars, even entire mixes. Now distortion circuit 3 emphasizes odd order harmonics, similar to tape saturation. It gives a more aggressive, edgy, and sometimes gritty sound. This is great for adding punch and aggression to drums, guitars, and bass. It can also be subtly used to add a bit of air to vocals. Now next up is another reason why I love this so much. We have a few detector options as well. Now real quick, before we get into that, if you are a rock or metal producer, I have something really exciting for you. I have an entire session breakdown of one of my songs where I break down everything, the exact plugins that I used, all the samples, and everything. You even get the stems that we can drag it into your DAW and play around with it as well. That's completely for free. I'll leave the link to that down in the description below. With everything off here, the full frequency range of the signal will trigger the compressor. But by turning on the high pass option, it ignores the low end when triggering the compressor. It still compresses everything, but it just ignores the low end for triggering the compression. Sometimes you want that kick to be a bit louder and don't want the compressor to hit that kick. This is great for if you're adding this to a mix bus, for example. Great if you're kind of getting that pumping sound on your mix bus and you want to kind of fix that. That button can usually fix it pretty quickly. The second option here is a band pass option, which makes it a bit more sensitive to that mid-range frequencies, right around that like 5 to 6K on some modules. I love doing this on bass. Can really kind of get the bass to sit well by taming those mid-range frequencies. And then of course we have a stereo link option here, so you can connect two distressors together. In the case of the plugin, it basically works as a stereo plugin, but in the case of the actual hardware, you'd have two side by side and you'd link them together and select that link, so that way you could actually compress things in stereo instead of dual mono. So I already showed it a minute ago, but let's open this up on bass and I'll show you how I'm controlling the bass with this plugin. So I'm using Distortion Circuit 3 for this one. If I turn that off and on again, make sure you're listening on a pair of headphones or good studio monitors to be able to really hear the difference between these distortion circuits. really emphasize that effect, I'll add another compressor in, but this time I'm just going to do a 1-to-1 ratio and add a distortion circuit too. And then I'm going to crank the input up and then bring the output down so that way we can start to really hear that distortion circuit kick in. You can actually go pretty crazy with this, which is why I love that we have the option for a 1-to-1 ratio. Let's see how I'm using this on vocals. Rain down, rain down. So I'll solo just the main vocal for now. And I have two instances of this plugin. First and foremost is the first one, which is running a 6-to-1 ratio, which is kind of emulating an 1176. I'm just trying to get a little bit of gain reduction out of those peaks. Rain down, no, the sky is falling down. And then on the second one, I'm using a 10-to-1 ratio, which is emulating the opto, and I also have Distortion Circuit 3 on for this one. And I'm really trying to slam this vocal a little bit more to really get it to stand out in the mix. Break down, break down. So with both instances of it off. Rain down, rain down. First one on. The sky is falling down. Second. Break down, break down. Wires twist around our throats, choking on the static stronghold. Rain down, rain down. As you can see, this is so much more than just a compressor. It's a harmonic saturator and even a limiter as well. Just a reminder that the free session breakdown is in the link down in the description below. And if you like this video, I know you're gonna love this video here, because in this video, I break down what the pros do that they don't necessarily want their clients to know they do all the time. And I know this because I've been professionally producing for the last 12 years, and I've done this myself. Now, as always, go create.